The 100 Acre Wood was unraveling at the edges. Not in thunder or fire, but in the inevitable vanishing of stories that went the way of public domain. Trees leaned into the void and dissolved like sand. The path peeled into nothing as though it had never been walked at all. Pooh sat on the stump, honey jar in his lap, as if the world were not ending around him. His eyes followed the horizon where the forest gave way to stars.
Christopher Robin hasn't been here for a long time. And Mr. Milne? He left even longer ago, didn't he?
I descended from my travels from the stars and landed on the ground which felt wrong beneath me. Too soft, too welcoming. It yielded as if it wished to hold me up rather than collapse beneath my weight. I have known the stone floors of drowned cities, the brittle glass of dead suns. I have not known this. I have not known warmth that insists on being kind. The moon above pressed down in its silver hue. It was steady, gentle, offensive in its insistence on being alive. I hated it for a moment, and then hated myself for noticing it at all. It had been ages since I had spoken. Entire empires had risen and failed in the silence of my mouth. But something in the little bear's remark, not a question, just a truth stated plainly, pressed against the dust in my chest. I did not answer right away. Silence was the only language I still knew how to give. Pooh looked at me, his round eyes steady, not afraid. And in that silence I saw his timeline, as if it were served beside the honey in his paws. I saw him atop a mountain staring into the abyss as black holes ate at the horizon. His story unraveling like a book read backward and burned at once. Past and present lay open before me, a fourth-dimensional ledger I could not unsee.
Would you care for some honey?
He offered. I looked down from my colossal height. The ground was too soft, the bear too kind. I reached slowly and accepted it. Honey, sweet, absurd, and very mortal. I had meant to dress in something formal, a robe, perhaps. Something that said civilized rather than apocalyptic. And yet, confronted with a bear holding honey, I realized there is no garment adequate for absurd kindness. I abandoned the robe. I sat as I was.
Why are you here?
The bear asks. His voice is steady, but there's a hollow in it. The bear asks it with the innocence of a child offering crumbs to a god. And in that moment, I felt Yog-Sothoth's annoyance ripple through the folds of time. The bureaucratic impatience of a manager who had explicitly told me to observe entropy, not converse with it. For the truth is plain. I was sent as a harbinger of entropy, an archivist of collapse. My charge was to watch this wood rot at the edges, to note the last breath of its stories, and to do nothing. Not to speak, not to stay, simply to observe, as one does a candle drowning in its own wax. That was the order. That was the law. And yet, here I linger, disobedient. Pooh does not know that his kindness, his absurd little constancy, has broken my silence. He will never know I was meant to record his extinction. And because the bear, absurd in his kindness, held honey out to me as though I belonged. No, I said, my voice a hinge cracking open. I do not know why I am here. But I knew something had changed. And though I had no library yet, no shelves, no promise, the thought formed like a seed buried deep. Perhaps this does not have to end.
Will it hurt once I'm gone?
At first, only a rasp came out. Then, against all the weight of my own silence, another word. The first I had spoken in aeons. No. Pooh dipped his paw into the jar, lifted honey, and offered it.
Christopher once told me he wanted to write a book about us. About the wood. I've looked for it, but I don't think it's anywhere. If I'm not around anymore, do you think you could find it?
The air seemed to shift at the sound of it, as if the wood itself had leaned closer. The unprecedented hour at hand where an eldritch god could speak plainly, and a childhood bear asking for mercy. My voice felt alien, even to myself, dragged through centuries of disuse, but I forced it again. No, but I could do you one better. I took the honey absurdly sweet against the bitterness of entropy. I could not find what had never been written, but I could do something else. Bear, do you know what a library is? Pooh put his paw to his head and rubbed it, thinking carefully, and as I spoke, I saw it, because I always see it. I saw the blacksmith's fire, the hammer ringing against impossible metal, and the honey poured into the seams of the blade, like amber captured at the dawn of time.
Here is your honey blade, proud Pooh of the woods. Now go and find your friends.
That was not yet his moment, but I am not bound to the calendar of men, and so it bled through. One thread of his story laid open upon the loom of mine, and I pitied him, because even as his weapon glowed with sweetness, I knew it had been forged in grief.
Well, that's a place with books, of course.
Yes, a place where nothing is lost, I added, where Christopher's story, and yours, will be kept, even if the world forgets to remember. Would you like that? Pooh nodded, satisfied in the way only he could be.
That sounds very good. Because even if Christopher doesn't come back, I think he would like to know he was still on a shelf somewhere.
The ground bent soft beneath me. The sun burned too warm overhead, and I knew in that moment that the 100 Acre Wood would not be consumed. It would be preserved, first among the shelves. Pooh watched the horizon sigh in relief and simply remain. The wood had stopped receding, my will turning the tide of entropy already. He looked back at me, honey still sticky on his paw.
By the way, if I may ask, what's your name?
The question felt heavier than it should have. My name had been screamed in fear, chanted in blood, used as a curse in forgotten temples. But spoken by this bear, it sounded almost harmless. Cthulhu, I said at last, my voice still rough from disuse.
Cthulhu the Librarian. Well, if someone has to keep the stories, it may as well be someone who looks like he's read them all already.
The ground folded soft beneath us. The bees fell silent.
Enjoying the story so far? Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Alice? Sleepnora?
The memory struck him like collapsing stone. Christopher's scream unraveling into the Green Knight's howl. Antlers clawing the vaults. The floor giving way beneath them. Alice's fury. Sleepnora's eyes bleaching white. And Pooh himself. Too soft, too slow, too merciful to stop it. Now Sleepnora stood before him, her spiral burning, her gaze no longer her own. Behind her, the monster's shadow twisted across the walls like a cathedral on fire. She turns, her voice tempered and unyielding.
You need to get the sword. Take his sword, he cannot.
With great faith in her friend, Alice dashed to Pooh's side and procured the honey blade, its golden light spilling across the ruin. Pooh shrank back, ears tight against his head.
I cannot fight him. Not Christopher. I can't even look at him. He was my friend. I'm sorry.
Alice turned,
You've carried enough sorrow, more than any one creature should. Let me bear this part. This is what friends are for.
Alice said, mustering courage, lifting the sword higher.
You rest. I'll do what must be done.
Sleepnora's body rose from the black water, her outline unraveling into light. Her hair streamed outward like riverweed, stirred by an unseen tide, and the glow at her chest flared into a crown wrought from liquid silver. Her voice, when it came, was no longer the uncertain murmur of the girl.
Alice, dearest child of courage, and thou, gentle Pooh, most steadfast of friends. Thou shalt not fight alone. The blade thou holdest is no toy of honey and play, but the first dream from which Excalibur was hewn, and I am its keeper, sworn since ages long forgot.
Alice drew a sharp breath. For a heartbeat she searched her friend's face, hoping to glimpse Sleepnora in the glow. And perhaps she did, in the faintest flicker of eyes that still remembered Rue. But the voice that spoke now belonged to legend. They stared at their friend as myth overtook her, and the girl dissolved into the storybooks. Her voice doubled with the weight of drowned centuries. The flood rose to her command, weaving itself into a translucent wall between the mortals and the antlered beast.
Take the blade, Alice. Cleave the rot that festers in him. Strike down the affliction Hades has loosed upon this place before it spreads and devours all that yet endures. Please, do it.
I can't keep him back much longer.
And then Spartan, the same one who had greeted Pooh and company, intervened. No longer brainwashed to be one of Hades' lackeys, but a man who had broken free of the river Lethe itself. He raised his shield against Christopher's corrupted claw, and for a brief, absurd heartbeat, he held. The blight shrieked at him, but it recoiled as if memory itself were poison. He galloped forward, defending the bear, bronze and memory fighting as if he were deep in the battle of Thermopylae within an Arthurian legend. A soldier centuries late, and yet perfectly on time. The claw of the Green Knight descended again, and he braced against it, shield raised, body trembling with light leaking from every seam. The impact shook the stones, cracked the pillars, bent the air itself. Still, he stood. His resolve was infectious, and Alice joined him in battle. Her hands gripped the honey blade as if it were the last true weight left in the world. She did not wait for courage. She ran to his side. The blade struck, and light tore through the Green Knight's rod like fire-cleaving pitch. The Spartan's shield caught the next blow, buckling but unbroken, and together they moved, her cuts burning away the creeping filth. His stance holding ground no mortal man had the right to keep. But Christopher was vast, and fury does not tire. The next strike came, and the Spartan turned, pushing Alice aside. The claws raked through him with the sound of stone cracking. He dropped to one knee, shield falling from his hand, yet his eyes, clear and steady, found Pooh where he trembled in the spray.
"Do not fear,"
he said, voice rough but unbroken.
"I broke the forgetful waters when Hades sought to drown me. I remember now. I remember my son. And I will see him in Elysium, thanks to you all."
The blight recoiled from his words, but his body dissolved into its glow, armor sinking into the ruin. Alice's blade still burned in her grip, but the space beside her was empty, save for the echo of a man who had chosen at last to remember. Alice lowered the blade, her eyes flicking to where the Spartan's body lay, half shadowed by the ebbing water. A hush fell over them, heavier than the stone around. Sleepnora bowed her head, the silver crown dimming as though in reverence. Christopher, coming back to his person and remembering, swallowed hard, shame flickering in his gaze.
I'm so sorry, everyone.
And then his eyes found Pooh, his childhood friend who had left his home, traveled to Olympus, faced uncertain trials, and joined up with an eldritch god, me, to save his friend's life. Alice's voice broke the silence first, firm but trembling.
You're no monster, Christopher. You've been twisted by the gods, that's all, but not lost. Take heart and take rest.
Thank you, miss. But could you please not yell in my ear? I'm right here. My head hurts.
Oh, sorry. I'm still recovering from swinging a sword at you.
Sleepnora drifted closer, the glow around her softening.
You don't have to fight anymore. Not with us, not with yourself. The shadow told you you were alone. But look.
She glanced at Alice, at Pooh, her eyes flickering with the faintest ember of Rue's mischief.
You've never been less alone in your life.
Christopher squinted at her, head cocked as though trying to tune in a distant radio.
Ro, why do you sound like you're speaking from the bottom of a well? Did you hit puberty or something? I must have missed a few chapters.
Sleepnora blinked, silver crown tilting with the faintest shrug.
Something like that.
Alice snorted despite herself, and even Pooh's solemn face twitched with a smile. Christopher sagged against them, his breath catching. His words came like wind through a shuttered room.
You know, guys, I remember the woods, the games, the laughter. But then the shadows came. They told me I had to grow, had to be more than a boy, more than a friend. They said the woods were a cage, that I had to leave it behind.
He shut his eyes.
I didn't know how to stop them.
Christopher rubbed his eyes and looked over at Sleepnora, first alarmed, and then curious about her radiant glow.
Rue, by the way, what was it you were trying to tell me back then?
He asked, voice low, shame curling around the edges.
I kind of became a monster and fell through the floor.
Yes.
She said deadpan, though Xiaoru's warmth peeked through her tone.
Very rude of you.
Christopher coughed a weak laugh.
Indeed. I won't do it again.
Her glow softened. For a heartbeat, she was only Rue again.
I wanted you to know you're my best friend.
Seconded,
said Pooh, picking himself up from the waters, fur dripping but eyes steady. Christopher's gaze lingered on the bear, waterlogged but steady, his brow furrowed.
Pooh, you look exactly the same, and yet not the same.
Pooh shook a bit of water from his fur with deliberate slowness.
Ah, yes. I've discovered there's more to life than honey. There's also irony. It's quite filling.
Christopher blinked, then laughed, a real startled laugh, the first in years.
Oh my goodness, you sound sharper. When did that happen?
Pooh shrugged, his eyes calm but glinting with mischief.
Somewhere between waiting for you and realizing the world doesn't stop being ridiculous just because you're not looking at it.
Christopher's voice softened, touched with regret.
Ah, well, I missed it. I missed you growing.
Pooh started walking closer, paw eventually resting gently against his arm.
That's all right. I've been growing toward you. Took a while, but here you are.
Christopher swallowed hard, then smiled faintly.
And I'm glad it's you. I am. Very much glad it's all of you. And I promise to never leave like that again, whether on horseback or falling through floors without a word first.
The chamber stilled. The waters quivered as though holding their breath. The rots retreat echoing like a sigh, and that naturally was my cue. Because why let mortals ruin a good catharsis without my expert commentary? The human heart laid bare, soft as a jellyfish in a tide pool. Alice with her trembling valor, Pooh with his impossible constancy, Sleepnora braiding Rue and Nimue into a single haunting cord, and Christopher the poor sod, convinced that growing up was supposed to be an execution. Mortals think themselves heroes for striking down rot with shining blades and tender words, but truly the miracle is that they keep trying. Against memory, against gods, against themselves, they persist. And so the saga continues, not because it must, but because it refuses to end, which of course means I'll be here, ink-stained, sarcastic and deeply annoyed, watching them struggle, stumble, and occasionally succeed in spite of it all.